and welcome to Pricing College with your hosts, Aidan Campbell
and Joanna Wells.
Today's topic was suggested to me by something I was doing during the lockdown. We were watching a bit of Netflix with the kids, and I thought to myself, God, I remember the times when we used to go and rent a VHS or a video at Blockbuster, and I wonder what happened to Blockbuster.
What happened to Blockbuster? Well, nothing good happened to Blockbuster. And what we wanted to talk about today, which relates to that story, is that sometimes you can't fix a bad business model or a dying business model by simply pricing your way through it.
You know, at Taylor Wells, some of the queries we get through are from obviously new companies. We get companies that are mature and want to improve, but we also get we've got queries from customers who are looking at pricing as a silver bullet, basically as a solution to their problems, and they're hoping that this magic box of tricks will unleash new profitability and rescue them from failure.
And often these companies are ones which really haven't considered their business life cycle or their customer life cycle. And both of these concepts and measurements are really important to pricing, because a good pricing manager will always look at the impact of pricing on a business model, and they'll look at pricing within a business in terms of what pricing power they have based on the total economic value a business can offer to customers and in the ecosystem. So well, just to go through what that means, because there's a lot of long words and concepts there. We'll go back to, thinking about a business, the music industry, for instance, HMV, Virgin, those big music megastores from the 90s. They were extremely popular for a good deal of time. But what happened? They basically didn't think that their business would ever die. They thought people would keep going back. They had a very staunch business strategy. They were almost, one could say, they feared the pain of losing that business strategy to inevitable changes that were occurring in the market. They were even resistant in changing their pricing strategy. They kept their prices very high. They assumed loyal consumers would keep coming back. They disregarded the fact that in their field, new entrants were coming in to provide consumers with cheaper DVDs. I'm thinking they were the supermarkets who started to offer customers DVDs and music at like half the price of HMV or Virgin. And another thing they did, they didn't think they should be getting online. They assumed people would always come back into the store to buy expensive music and vinyl simply because they loved music. All of these assumptions were proved incorrect. And at the very last minute, only then did they slash their prices to keep their doors open, but by which time it was too late because the business life cycle was already at its end.
I think you can look at these companies, Blockbuster, HMV, etc. They had a very successful business. They had, you could almost say it was a goose that laid a golden egg. Every year they're making profits. They were renting out DVDs or VHS or whatever it was at the time. But technology moved ahead. Basically, without them fully being aware of it, there was a competitor growing somewhere, whether that was streaming or satellite television or something else, and that was growing in the background. Spotify in the world of music, and when that really came along, it really wiped them out because these companies, they were focused on what they were doing at that time. Obviously, it's massive technological change, and we can't say somebody's right or wrong, and they should have moved ahead or they should have, surfed that wave when it came, because obviously that would require great entrepreneurial flair, etc., and that's not for everyone. But the concept was, when they saw that the writing on the wall, the question is, could a pricing change have rescued Blockbuster Video? Could it have rescued HMV Music, Virgin Megastores? That's a really good question.
Well, do you know what? It could have for a time. They could have optimized prices earlier than they did. But saying that, the business life cycle would have come to an end. So it's sort of optimizing to an inevitable end. What they didn't really do was capture the EBIT opportunities throughout the life cycle. They did at the beginning, but then they just kept their pricing strategy and price setting the same. And from that, they didn't optimize, and then they lost volume because the traffic went to supermarkets. The traffic went online, so they lost a lot of their customer base. They lost market share, they lost profitability, and then they didn't even collect the EBIT that they deserved. So, they could have done more price optimization through the business life cycle, which they didn't. So yes, there was an opportunity. So what I'm saying is, yes, there's an opportunity for businesses, dying business models, but you've got to be smart about it, and you've got to know what you're doing to capture those EBIT opportunities. Because in each phase of the business, there are different types of opportunities, and a good pricing expert and manager will know this, and they will optimize, which basically means they'll adjust prices accordingly, whether this is across, the product group or according to different customer segments or price segments. They'll do whatever it takes. However, the important point to make here is that pricing is always connected to the business model. And for businesses that don't see that, they're the ones that suffer in the end, and they don't get any additional profitability, and they lose volume.
My personal view is pricing could not have saved these businesses. They would have required a massive pivot, a term we use in startup businesses. You look at the huge brick and mortar stores. Most of them were in very prominent town centre locations, or very easy to access suburban locations. In the example of the Blockbuster video, where people could go easily. With that, they either owned the stores or were renting, so massive rental leases, very large salary costs. And a lot of them would have had debt as well, which they would have used to expand, to buy more premises and grow the business. The big issue with business and life in general is you can only see so far ahead, and we tend to extrapolate. Who really would have thought that Netflix, Spotify were coming so quickly and would have dominated the market so fast? It's not, these things happen to any industry, but I suppose the lesson I would take from this is, in industry, pricing has to be focused on value, the value you're giving to the customers. And when at the initial stage of seeing these challengers come along, seeing these challengers appear, did those companies, and this is, I don't actually know the answer to this, did those companies think, let's ignore it, let's keep the golden goose laying eggs for us as long as possible? Or did they think, do you know what, let's go up against these guys, let's try to challenge them, and let's see where it can go? But we don't know the answer to that, but it's I would have to say, when you have a very successful business, it's very difficult to get buy-in in a company to pivot to a less profitable one in the short term.
Well, I think the answer to that is that I think a lot of businesses fear the pain of loss. They fear that they've made, sometimes when you make such large investment and effort into a certain strategy, and then you decide to pivot, you feel pain in the fact that you made a wrong decision in the original strategy, and you invested so much in it, so you don't pivot. So that's almost like the opposite of agile. What I'm trying to say here is that it's okay to fail, but you have to understand that quickly before you can then use pricing more effectively. You've got to know when your business model is failing. Because otherwise you're literally just pricing for the moment. And yes, you'll get something in return if you're doing your price optimization right, but it's not a long-term strategy. So I think if these businesses had have used a value-based pricing approach at the core of their business, they obviously didn't. But I think this would have informed their business strategy, and it would have helped the executives to understand a bit more when the problems were occurring. And I think this is a lesson that a lot of businesses can learn now, as we are all disrupted with, the crisis of COVID. This is going to have a massive implication and change effect on how we price. And I think those that have a very value-based pricing model will be 2 steps ahead, if not 5 or 6, than those that have a fixed cost-plus approach, who have an insular view of their business strategy, who are not looking out for better examples cross industry about what other people are doing, and who are not looking at their customer base for cues about their pricing. So take this on board. I think, think about your customer life cycle, think about your business life cycle when you're pricing, and never look inward. Always keep looking outward.
Yeah, I think I'll wrap up. I think nearly every country, certainly Australia, the United States, the UK, there's a huge amount of government support for companies, which is a plus because in the medium phase it preserves employment, but also like in a capitalist society, companies have to fail, businesses have to collapse, people have to move on to new business models and new companies. No company will last forever. Some do last a very long period of time, but the majority of companies last a lot shorter period of time than we think. And we need corporate failure to drive, innovation, to drive new business models. Pricing can help optimize things along the way and can help people focus on the right business model. But if a business model is failing, there's not very much you can do with it.
No, that's agreed. Well, thanks for listening, and we can discuss maybe again another time. All right, thanks a lot.
Have a great day then. Bye.